Wade, come on over here. Come on over here. Wade Sufel, ladies and gentlemen. What a wonderful, wonderful piece. This was Bach's Solo Cello Suite Number 2 in D minor, the Prelude, correct? Yep. You are a graduate of a College of Music. Can you tell us more about that? Come on over here.
I recently graduated from the Curtis Institute of Music, located in Philadelphia.
Here, and you're going to do an Artist Fellowship year this year. You're an inaugural Artist Fellow. Could you tell us how in the world you came about that? Where'd you learn about it, and why are you excited about it?
Right, so my friends at Curtis, David Ludwig, Elizabeth Warschauer, Margot Dracos, they asked me if I would like to participate in this pilot program, which will be bringing the arts to underserved parts of the community in the Philadelphia area. So myself and two other musicians, Alex Van der Ems, Michelle Can, will be going into schools as a sort of outreach and getting people interested, especially children interested in classical music, and trying to make an impact and showing them the importance of the arts.
That's terrific, because it's not only about STEM, folks, it's STEAM, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math, correct? Isn't that right? Well, Wade, I want to thank you, first of all, for the year of service you're about to do, and that sort of commitment, and how you're going to change children's lives. And we would love to hear from you, wouldn't we, at that end of that year of service, and hopefully those who have helped found that will connect us to you and see what you've done. Sounds good?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. And in fact, I would like David, Elizabeth, and Margot to stand. Where are you? Please stand, and let's give them a round of applause for this wonderful program. Thank you. It's called the Artist Year Fellowship. This idea came out of the Aspen National Service Ideas Festival we had last year. A few people can make a difference. That's the beauty of us coming together. I know about half of you here. I'll get to know the rest of you very soon, in fact. But just a small group of people with an idea, the inspiration, basically, to move that idea forward, and having the courage to get it done, can make all the difference in the world. And it will make a difference for Wade, but not only that, Wade, there will be a ripple where you'll make a huge difference to scores and scores of children that you're going to introduce to classical music. I'm Rob Gordon. As I said, I know half of you already. I am the president of Be the Change, and I'm delighted to be with you here at Gettysburg, a show of hands of those of you who are visiting Gettysburg for the first time. Wow, look at that, about half. Terrific. Well, enjoy this incredible venue. It is a historical note, this place, and it's appropriate that we move national service forward here, where courage played a great role in restoring a country, perseverance, strategy, but at the end of the day, vision. And we've got the right people at the right place to move the vision of national service forward. And it's a vision some of us have been working on for quite a while. I got really jazzed about this about 20 years ago when I met one each Alan Casey and Shirley Sagawa and those others in service, moving national service to a crescendo to where it is today. We have unfinished work, but the moment is here to finish that, along with newcomers as well, and new leaders. So welcome to Gettysburg. We've got 3 days to be together. You're going to hear from some august speakers and thought leaders, but we also want your ideas and your thoughts in terms of how to get national service across the finish line. Gettysburg, I'm just delighted, in fact, to introduce you to our hosts who will be shepherding us throughout these next 3 days. And we'll be talking a little bit about this august place. But I want to leave you, as I move off the stage, with this. Vision and ideas make a difference. But the most important thing that makes a difference to bring an idea to a reality is the people around it. And I'm absolutely delighted that those people are here under this tent at Gettysburg today. With that, let me introduce Joanne Handley, President of the Gettysburg Foundation, and Ed Clark, Superintendent of Gettysburg National Park. Joanne and Ed.
Good afternoon. I'm encouraged to see so many hands go up for the first time. I think it's wonderful that this event has brought so many first-time visitors to Gettysburg, and I really think you all will find this a very special place, and I think we'll be very moved by your experience here. Well, good afternoon. As I said, my name is Ed Clark, and I'm the superintendent here at Gettysburg National Military Park and Eisenhower National Historic Site. What a beautiful time of year to be here at this very special place that was so defining in our nation's history. Volunteers formed the ranks of these two armies who fought here and citizen volunteers were a critical part of the Gettysburg stories. These volunteers responded to the aftermath of this battle, cared for the wounded, helped the families of those seeking to find what happened to their loved ones, took the first steps to preserve this battlefield, and created the National Cemetery that's behind us here up on the hill. Also, as we're losing members of the greatest generation, the stories at Eisenhower National Historic Site continue to remind us of their volunteerism and their sacrifice, as well as the commitment of their families through that very trying time. Today, citizen volunteers continue to be a vital part of the National Park Service mission, especially here at Gettysburg and Eisenhower. Volunteers inspire the public who come to visit this place and help us commemorate these very special places and connect people to those stories of the past. Our volunteers serve for reasons made clear in Gettysburg in 1863. These reasons still resound today. They answer Lincoln's challenge to never forget what they did here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joanne Handley, and I'm president of the Gettysburg Foundation, the private, nonprofit partner of the National Park Service here at Gettysburg. With a membership of 20,000 friends around the country and the world, the Gettysburg Foundation strives to honor the sacrifice, the dedication, the bravery, and the heroism of those who fought here and died here at Gettysburg, so that their deeds are never forgotten, so that their memories and their words continue to teach us the lessons of history, so that future generations always remember from where we have come as a country, and so these dead shall not have died in vain. We work to ensure that the national treasures at both Gettysburg National Military Park and Eisenhower National Historic Site are preserved and remained unimpaired for future generations. We do this in partnership with the National Park Service at Gettysburg through several different ways: through raising funds for preservation, acquisition, and education, through the visitor experience at the museum and the visitor center, and through our dedicated and committed members, donors, and stakeholders. I know that you will feel the power of the historical events as you visit these hallowed grounds over the next several days. Tonight, we will spend the evening in the museum and the visitor center, a joint collaborative project between the Gettysburg Foundation and the National Park Service. As you view the film tonight, experience the cyclorama, and walk through the exhibits after dinner, I ask you to ponder and be inspired by what the power of a few friends and volunteers can accomplish. The Gettysburg Foundation is proud to have raised the funds for and built the Museum and Visitors Center with the National Park Service, and to operate it in collaboration with the National Park Service. But we are even more proud that we can continue the legacy of President Lincoln's charge, that it is up to us, the living, to ensure that these dead shall not have died in vain. And now, please welcome with me the chair of the Leadership Council of the Franklin Project, General Stanley McChrystal.
I first came to this spot 48 years ago. My father had just returned from his first tour in Vietnam, and he brought myself and my older brother here, and we stood right over there, and my father talked a little bit about war, a little bit about confusion, but I was 11 years old at the time, so I only got part of it. And what I really remember, he had just come home from a year at war, but to me it was a year away from my mother and 6 kids. And that was the real sense of sacrifice. And of course, he went back for a subsequent tour, and when he died just a few months ago, he had 4 grandsons on the day he died serving in Afghanistan. So I thought a lot about service, and I come here a lot because to me this is sacred ground, not because a battle was fought here, but because people came here on both sides committed to something that was not for their personal profit, not for their personal glory, but was for something that they felt warranted real sacrifice. So if you would, sort of go back with me. It's the evening of July 2nd, 1863. In the little White House over my shoulder sits General Meade's headquarters. And on this ridgeline was his Army of the Potomac. A mile to the west, on the opposite ridgeline, Seminary Ridge, General Lee's Army of Northern Virginia was encamped after 2 days of running battle. Gettysburg was finished with its second day at this point. For soldiers on both sides, exhaustion from the march, from the previous 2 days' battles, and from more than 2 years of war was evident. Blistered feet, chapped faces and matted hair, the lingering stink and haze of smoke. Fear of what the next day portends competes with a sense of duty to one another. From general to private, for everyone on this field, the challenge ahead would be visceral, volatile, bloody, and urgent. 4.5 months later, President Lincoln gave his now famous address in the cemetery that's to your rear. He began with a premise that our nation's built on noble but precarious footing. We must constantly take stock of where we stand and dedicate and rededicate ourselves to whatever action, whatever unfinished work is required to meet our founder's promise. In that challenge, he implored that we don't just need well wishes to make this country whole, but we need action. An action bold enough to turn the tide of a nation is difficult. President Lincoln, in the somber shadow of this place's tens of thousands dead, called upon the nation to carry on. While the battle at Gettysburg was instrumental, the Civil War would not end for more than 2 years. That was 151 years ago. It's now the evening of June 4th, 2014. We're here to address another challenge. It's not as visceral as it was for those on the battlefield in 1863, and it's imperceptible to those who wouldn't look. The problem's insidious. A decline in our trust in one another, in our connection to our communities, in our sense of duty to serve our nation, and in our sense that we can do big things together. Our sense of citizenship has dulled. President Lincoln's incitement to persist, his call to action, would meet success or failure as a result of millions of individual actions. Those actions changed the course of history, righted wrong, and preserved our nation. Now, as it was here, our nation's young people must lead the way. We have an opportunity to seize on their enthusiasm for service, for hard work, and for a better country, and to do something big. Not everyone can or should serve in the military, but if every young American completed a service year, whether in healthcare, conservation, education, or in a range of other areas, it would change the way we think about ourselves, about one another, about our community, our country, and our world. We're not here to tiptoe around with an incremental approach. Our vision is bold and simple, a nation where a year of full-time national service is a cultural expectation, common opportunity, and a civic rite of passage for every young American. Our goal is straightforward. Create 1 million service year positions annually within a decade. We're here to think about exactly how to get that done and to begin the long and hard but worthwhile process of fulfilling the promise of what it means to be an American. As in generations past, we need to harness the energy and enthusiasm of a generation in meeting our country's toughest challenges. This is the unfinished work of our time. The next 5 people you will hear from have all answered the call. They've served our country and represent a generation that's committed to leaving a mark by changing our concept of citizenship. Their service should inspire you to work harder over the next 3 days to make the big idea a reality. And in a few moments, when you listen to the Gettysburg Address, I ask you to commit to live it, to take personal responsibility for the work ahead of us. It will not be easy. It won't happen overnight. But it's our duty. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dev Zaveri. I'm an attorney, a mother of 2 small children, and as of last week, a graduate of Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. I'm also, thank you. I'm also a veteran who had the honor of serving alongside some amazing men and women as a JAG officer in the United States Navy. Now, I'm about as unlikely a military officer as you'll ever find. My dad emigrated to the US 42 years ago today from India, and I emigrated a few years later. We come from a caste of merchants, not soldiers. So when I wasn't in school, I spent my time working in my parents' convenience store. Military service wasn't even a topic of conversation in our household. So you can imagine my parents' surprise one day when in high school I came home and told them that I had earned a competitive nomination to West Point. Not knowing anything about military service themselves, my parents vetoed my plans. But a few years later, when a Navy recruiter showed up on my law school campus, I signed up. Now, it certainly wasn't the most lucrative path I could have chosen, but in my heart, I knew I had to give back to the country that had so generously opened its doors to my parents and me and allowed us to lift ourselves out of the poverty that we faced in India. Now, this time, my parents thought I was completely crazy. In the Navy, they said, "You don't even know how to swim." But I learned how to swim, and when my parents saw me in uniform and saw that I was a part of something greater than myself, they couldn't have been prouder. In preparing to talk to you today, I struggled a bit to find words to sum up why it's so important to serve. And then I came across these words from a fellow Navy veteran, Senator John McCain. And he said, "In America, our rights come before our duties, as they should. We are a free people, and among our freedoms is the liberty to care or not care for our birthright. But those who claim their liberty but not their duty to the civilization that ensures it, live a half-life, indulging their self-interest at the cost of their self-respect. The richest men and women possess nothing of real value if their lives have no greater object than themselves. Success, wealth, celebrity gained and kept for private interest, these are small things. They make us comfortable, ease the way for our children, and purchase a fleeting regard for our lives, but not the self-respect that in the end matters the most. Sacrifice for a cause greater than self-interest, however, and you invest your life with the eminence of that cause. Thank you for allowing me to share these words, and thank you all for your commitment to serving our great nation.
My name is Jermaine Castellanos. I did my year of service with AmeriCorps in Waukegan, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago, just outside the Great Lakes Naval Base. I don't know if anybody knows about it. Okay, so there. I grew up in a neighborhood that was poverty-stricken community, gangs, crime, violence, and other symptoms of poverty. And my parents, they came from Mexico, so I learned from my father how to serve. Right, he told me the story of how he crossed the desert, from the Mexican border into the U.S. and how the struggles were, right, and he even told me how he learned to speak English. Right, he told me that he learned to speak English by watching John Wayne movies hours on end. and Richard Pryor records. If you can picture that. So he was one of the only people in our community who knew English, right? His version of it. And so people would come over to our house and he would read correspondences. He would read letters that came from the city or from the, from government. And, and he would help people in that way. So that showed me a certain way to serve. One of his advice was, he said, mijo, which is a affectionate term to say, son, if you work really hard and you do your job, you could be a supervisor in a factory one day. And I said, wow, I can be a supervisor in a factory one day. And that's what he thought was, the top career that I could aspire to. And growing up in the type of neighborhood that I grew up in, I saw that, as being the top. However, I learned through my service with AmeriCorps that there's other ways to serve. There's other ways to break the cycle of poverty, and that's how I did my service. I helped young people that were 16 to 24 get their GEDs so they can go on to post-secondary education and the military. I helped them train for jobs and learn the soft skills that they needed in order to to go on and get a real job in a career, and help them focus on what they wanted to do and how they wanted to serve their communities. We gave them opportunities to serve by cleaning out ravines and picking up garbage, and and doing Red Cross presentations, and doing specific things that help them create ownership in their communities. And that's how I did my year of service. I continued on with working with at-risk youth, as I was one myself. And during my year of service, it was not just a year of service, it was a year of transformation, right? I was in a gang. I went to youth detention. I went through the school of hard knocks, and then I learned that I could channel that energy through service and give back, like how I saw my father give back to his community in the way that I know how to. So I learned that, and the quote that I chose, my life has been sprinkled with failure, success, failure, grit, adversity, and leadership through service, and that's what service means to me. I have a quote by Maya Angelou. It says, "There's a charge you have, a charge, and the charge is one to make the country more than it is today, more than what James Baldwin called these yet to be United States. It's part of your charge to make this world a better world, to take responsibility for the time you take up and the space you occupy. Your charge is to realize you've already been paid for, whether the ancestors came from Eastern Europe, trying to escape the pogroms, the little and large murders, arriving at Ellis Island, having their names changed to something utterly unpronounceable. If the ancestors came from Asia in the 1850s to build this country, unable to legally bring their mates for decades, or if the ancestors came from anywhere in Europe, from Ireland, from Greece, from Italy, if they came from anywhere, from Bangalore, if they came from Bengali, if they came from Africa, unwilling, lying, spoon fashion in their filthy hatchets of slave ships and in their own, and if others' excrement, urine, menstrual flow, they have paid for each of you, each of us already. So part of what your charge is to pay for someone else who's yet to come. This is your encouragement. This is also your charge. Young men and women, we need you." That's the quote. My challenge was to serve. I challenge you to think creatively over the next couple days to figure, how can you help? How can you serve? How can you help create these opportunities that young Americans need, that old Americans need, to give back, to be able to give back? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eric Robinson. I'm from New Hartford, New York, and I served in the 101st Airborne Division of the United States Army from 2004 to 2009, which included tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. To me, service means dedication beyond oneself or one's own needs. Before the Revolution, the same may have been true amongst the British subjects that populated what would become the United States, but service certainly carried a specific definition, serving king and country. The establishment of the United States at the end of the Revolution forever broke the king and country charge for Americans. We were no longer subjects, we were citizens. In the middle of our Civil War, Abraham Lincoln took note of this significant change. He made note of it in the first line of the Gettysburg Address, and his speech borrowed from the enormous moral weight that the Declaration of Independence represented. In authoring the Declaration, Thomas Jefferson not only set the establishment of the United States itself into motion, he forever tied this establishment with a clear moral vision. A moral vision that brought Lincoln here to speak of dedication and consecration, and a vision that continues to represent all citizens a challenge, that of keeping a free country with free citizens, with rights unalienable, a goal worthy of a lifetime of service. Published on the 4th of July, 1776, Thomas Jefferson's Declaration stated, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." I wanted to thank everybody from the Aspen Institute and the Franklin Project for allowing me to take part in this event. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Myesha Taylor. I'm a student, a teacher, a beginner farmer, and an alumni of AmeriCorps. I completed my service in AmeriCorps at Real Food Farm, an urban farm in Baltimore, Maryland, and Civic Works as a member of the Corps Network. If I could travel back in time, I wonder if I talked to my third grade self, would I believe that I'd be working on a 30-acre organic research farm in Goldsboro, North Carolina. Most youth aspire to be doctors, lawyers, web designers, game testers. Not many, city kids want to get their good clothes and hands dirty, but I saw growing food as a sacrifice to, serving my community. On August 4th, 2011, I felt like I was called to this service when my grandmother, Josiane Morris, was laid to rest. Upon her passing, I researched a lot of, the illnesses she dealt with, like hyperlipidemia, hypertension, but the autopsy read malnutrition. And I wondered, how can someone in America be malnourished when we supply so much food, we grow so much food? I pictured kids in third world countries with protruding bellies, and I just, I had a hard time grappling with it. Questions after question arose, and then I realized that full doesn't mean anything. Our bodies desire to be nourished, to be fed food that gives us life, not food that takes up space. My concern indirectly changed my work. My path led down rows of kale greens, carrots, cucumbers, and other tasty produce that I worked with kids who, at my age, was doing what I did in third grade, growing fresh food. I joined the AmeriCorps family as an after-school teacher, unaware that it was just a match to ignite my passion of nutrition education and creating a more just and healthy food system. I wanted to teach youth what I learned at 21. I didn't learn how to read a nutrition label until my senior year in college, so I felt like it'd be, a good way for me to reach back in and share my knowledge. Recently, I read Rachel Naomi Remen's speech, Helping, Fixing, or Serving. Rachel Naomi Remen is a pioneer of holistic health and the founder of the Institute for the Study of Health and Illnesses that works with cancer patients. And their quote is as follows: "When we help, we become aware of our own strength. But when we serve, we don't serve with our strength. We serve with ourselves. And we draw from all our experiences. Our limitations serve, our wounds serve, even our darkness can serve. My pain is the source of my compassion. My woundedness is the key to my empathy." This quote reflects my passion for creating a healthier community, and food system. It also motivates me to continue to cultivate the soil and the minds of our generation. They say the future belongs to those who serve, but to me, it belongs to those who feed our nation. It is an honor to be in the presence of so many people here today that have their hands and hearts planted in service, and I'd like to thank you all.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or to detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us at the Gettysburg Visitors Center.